outdoors, but it's not that great of a picture, but it was from the DEA, so I couldn't help myself. They, you know, in some ways have promoted the idea of growing cannabis and the benefits that can come from that in such a way that, while it might seem like they're coming down in the war on drugs and cutting down thousands of dollars of plants, when they raid grow ops like this and do big public relations campaigns, they're actually convincing, you know, people that don't have a lot of money or opportunity to get into the business, because they promote it as being so so worthy that it's hard to resist. So increasingly around the world, cannabis is being grown indoors, and part of that, and I'll come back to it later, but part of that is definitely the sale of seeds around the world. And I brought a couple of seed catalogs. Actually, these are from Amsterdam. And Amsterdam and the Netherlands have traditionally, for it seems, you know, 40 years, allowed for the personal use of hashish. And there also has been cultivators, small personal cultivators, in particular in Amsterdam, where the growing of it and the sale of small amounts of seeds has been tolerated. And so the technology to be able to do this is one thing, but the seed culture and genetics that have come with that have also been very important in the cannabis sort of shift from outdoors to indoors. And so aside from Amsterdam, California, and Humboldt County, I think in particular, it has been leaders in providing genetics that have improved upon the growing of cannabis for the last 20 or 30 years. Obviously, people here in British Columbia would now like to think that they are world leaders, and in many ways, I believe they are as well. But certainly, the precedent and the leaders originally were California and Amsterdam. And right now, because the technology is so exportable, the idea that any one region has got a monopoly on good seeds and good genetics is really unrealistic. It's something that you know, can be done in any closet, you know, anywhere. But those are the three main bodies. You know, like I say, BC in the last 10 or 15 years has really put itself on the stage. There's all sorts of books getting out there too. I'm just going to hit on a couple of books just to show people what's out there. I brought the Cannabis 3 by Jason King. This is the third in a series of different genetics that are being created around the world, and Jason really gets into, you know, how they're grown and the different variations. And it's really fascinating study to read about all the different genetics that are being made possible because it is being grown indoors, and for the last 25 years that has really exploded. That wasn't around in the 60s and 70s, which has meant a whole bunch of different things. Yeah, so but that doesn't mean that it's all indoors. I really like this beautiful picture that the DEA put here. Unfortunately, obviously, it's not going anymore, but it would have been really nice to work in this grow up when it was happening. There's certainly, as we saw, like, you know, the Pacific coast of the U.S. being predominantly where the cannabis is being grown there, and a lot here in British Columbia as well. There's so many places to hide things in the hills. Even recently, I don't have the paper, but there was a picture of, I think it was 18 greenhouses that got busted up north just recently. So really, the amount that's being grown outdoors in facilities like this, completely off the grid, is impossible to speculate. If people have been operating facilities like that for long periods of time, you know, it's just impossible to speculate how much is going out there. You know, they get lucky and find different places for different reasons. But you know, as you can kind of see from this picture, you know, the amount of, and as we, you know, should know growing up in British Columbia, the amount of space to kind of cover in this continent alone, let alone the world, is pretty much impossible, because with a combination of indoor growing and outdoor growing, there's very few places that cannabis isn't being grown. I think the United Nations estimates that it's being grown, I think about down here, in 172 countries around the world now, and that's because places like Iceland can be growing cannabis in grow houses and stuff that they couldn't years ago. Greenhouse technologies, genetics, all sorts of things are making it possible for people to grow smaller plants, more production, all these various things. So one of the other most obvious places in the world that cannabis use is a part of the culture would be Jamaica. Most people are obviously familiar with Bob Marley and the impact that he's had in some ways on the world, not just with cannabis, but with many issues of peace and freedom. But there's a really excellent study I think I've referred to on here. Yeah, there's a list of relevant websites. Yeah, I think this one is on the UN. UNODC, Office of Drug Control. I believe this study, Jamaican study, is on there. It just talks about how common the use of cannabis is, how it's a part of the Rastafarian culture that is very prevalent in Jamaica and in other parts of the world as well, Ethiopia and many parts of Africa, as well as having, in the United States and even in Canada, there's a certain number of the population that would identify themselves as Rastafarians, and a lot of their beliefs center around cannabis as being the tree of life, and certainly quite openly almost flaunt their use of the herb at times. And so yeah, I couldn't do a talk on cannabis around the world without talking about Jamaica for a second. But I wanted to talk a little bit too about the Himalayas and Pakistan, Afghanistan, that part of the world, India, because hashish in particular is very common. Using cannabis in drinks, bang, and other traditional food products is something in India is quite common. Some parts of the world were named because they were so well known for their bang. Bangkok, Bangladesh. I understand Bangkok, there's like 12 different sort of styles of bang that are grown depending on which district of town you're in. Will depend on whether they've got it flavored with cinnamon or nutmeg or both. And there's a real culture, almost like we have of coffee, but of bang, and or beer, right? Like just all sorts of different ways. Bang is essentially cannabis cooked in milk mixed with a bit of honey. So when you hear of old terms of the land of milk and honey, it would often refer to how good their bang was. And you would basically cook it in milk for about 12 hours, which gives it time to decarboxylize. Again, if Dr. Warren comes, you'll figure out what that means. But it also helps extract the chemicals from the plant into the milk, and then you just extract out the plant material and you drink it. And the milk and honey make it taste quite good. It's not a great kind of high like many of us expect, the acute high that comes from smoking, but it's very much relaxing.
You like boil that or just like simmer it?
Double boil it for 12 hours or simmer it, but simmering, after 12 hours you might break things down. Usually they will simmer. It can be safe, but double boil's a ticket in this day and age. You double boil it for 3 or 4 hours is enough. You don't have to do